YouTube vinyl community, Beach Boys fans, random people on the internet. My name is Giggens, and we're here today to do an album review that has been requested for years now, and with Love You Month finally wrapping up here, here it is, The Beach Boys Love You, one of the best albums ever created of all time. No history on this video because I've done other videos this month you can click on. They're probably next to me or below this video somewhere. We can learn about the history of this album. This is just the review of the songs. Hands down, this is one of the most unique sounding albums they ever made. They never did anything like this ever again. And I love that for it. It's got such a unique place in the Beach Boys discography to get an insight into Brian's mind, into the guys helping out vocally, into the rhythmic changes on this thing. It's a very unique album, even down to the cover itself. Dean Torrance did this album cover, but it looks futuristic. The sound is futuristic. This whole album doesn't sound like it comes from one era. It sounds like it comes from some other dimension, which is fantastic. It opens up with Carl giving his "Rah!" in the beginning, which is just a great way to start this album. You get these gigantic, chunky drums, these heavy, thick synth leads. You're in for a Beach Boys sound you've never heard before. And I love Mike's delivery in the bridge. Very classic Mike Love wordplay. His breezy vocal is a nice offset to Carl's really impassioned lead. And the chorus itself is just fantastic. A lot of this album lyrically takes itself back to being like when you were in high school. So a lot of this album is kind of like written from a different point of view, which is pretty cool. But just an excellent, excellent hard rocking riff opener. Wonderful start to this record. Then you get the 1-2 punch of Roller Skating Child to follow that up. And again, the dense instrumentation here is so attractive to my ears. I love hearing all these big, heavy synth sounds, particularly because there isn't anything like that in the Beach Boys discography. So to hear something different, but still very Beach Boys, is a unique experience. But I love Al's bridge part on this thing. You know, his vocal, especially how he ends it with "That's right." It's just this cool little riff that he does at the end that adds such a little flavor to it. Just a nice little kick to add the fun element that this track is just fun all the way around. But definitely written from a couple of like high schoolers' perspectives here. Brian's little line at the end is great, but Mike's vocal I think is great on the verses. It's just a lighthearted, fun track, and I will always justify the line, "We do it holding hands, it's so cold I go burr." That line is perfect. I think it's wonderful. It's very, very Brian. Love it. Then you get Mona with Denny on lead vocal doing this very 50s inspired track that doesn't really have a chorus per se. It just kind of continues along for a while as if like the night keeps building up and you know these two people are getting more and more romantic with each other. They're going out to a movie, they're going to get dinner, they're hanging out, they're talking about their favorite songs from back in the day. I love the pacing on this one. The sax that's built on top of the synth gives us a really kind of funky feel to it. So it's got a bit of the 50s feel, but also a bit of that futuristic sci-fi feel. Love that combination there. So that's a lot of fun with that one there, but very hypnotic kind of feel, how it kind of repeats itself musically over and over again until it kind of just fades out because it disappears into nothingness, which is pretty awesome. Johnny Carson, that wacky rhythm. I mean, this album is full of some of the strangest rhythms that Brian ever created, and I love how he pulls it off. It makes it sound instantly hummable and catchy, something that's not very easy to do. If you're a fan of prog, different rhythms are sometimes hard to accomplish and make them sound actually listenable. But this one, the knockout vocal performance on this one, between all the vocal interplay, Carl's doing his part, Mike's doing his part, it's classic Beach Boys mixed with that new school sound. I can't say enough about this song. And the fact that Brian might be comparing himself to Johnny Carson in the sense that, you know, the network makes him break his back, I've always felt that line was kind of like the record company's making Brian work harder. So I've always kind of felt like this song was maybe Brian said a little bit of himself and Johnny Carson. And it's funny talking to other people from different countries who had no idea who Johnny Carson is or was. And so, I mean, his show, he was doing the Tonight Show for years. He stopped doing the Tonight Show when I was a kid. So I never watched Johnny Carson that night. I've seen clips of his show. He was always a very funny guy. So it's pretty cool. Brian wrote about him. And then you get the biggest left turn of the album with Good Time. a total head scratcher. But really, the only reason why this song is on here, Brian famously said one time, "Why waste a good song?" And I get it. And what makes this album perfect is that it's imperfect. And so having a vocal from Brian from 1970 where he still has his higher, softer, sweeter voice mixed in with the gruffer vocals. And, this track in particular, it sticks out like a sore thumb also because it's got this, fairground carnival vibe to it and none of the big, chunky, heavy synth vibes that are, predominantly taking over this record. It takes you to a whole different place, and I kind of like that because this album is kind of a whole different place, so why not just throw another wacky curveball in there? It works. It's an old school song, but it works. And then it jumps right into Honkin' Down the Highway, which was the lead single from this thing. And Al takes a freaking classic solo on this thing with his lead vocal. The way Al delivers this track, he completely owns it. He's so in the zone and so confident and so cool. If you really listen to his delivery, he's just owning it the whole time. But I love how there's so much layering on this track between the pianos on top of the synth, on top of those heavy drums. I mean, what a beat. I mean, killer beat on that thing. It stays the whole way through, but I love the really romantic sort of changes and build-ups throughout this thing. It's just a great song. It's so fun. It's too bad that it wasn't a big single for them. They played it live. I mean, it works live for sure. Hell of a song. And then you get the song that everybody references in every single Beach Boys meme for the last couple of years, Ding Dang. This song looms large in the Beach Boys legend. Rumor has it Brian went to visit Roger McGuinn one night and stayed there playing Ding Dang for like 16 hours. Like, Roger went to bed, woke up the next day, Brian was still at the piano playing around with this thing. So the recording of this song is either from 73 or 74 with overdubs and bits and parts changed since that time. So no one's really exactly sure on the actual date that this thing is from. But it's a hell of a rocker, and it fits right in. I mean, a lot of people have qualms with this song, but I always think of it as like their version of Wild Honey Pie or something. Just throw a little bit of fun in there. What's wrong with that? Solar System. This is an absolutely gorgeous track that takes rhythm to another otherworldly place on an album that already feels like this. Brian's playful vocal is heartfelt and touching. The chorus is just angelic and wonderful. The track itself is just such a joy. Absolute fun on this one. And then you get, for me, the absolute crown jewel of the album and one of the best songs they ever did, period, The Night Was So Young. And when I first heard this record, I think I was in high school or early college, I can't remember. This was the first track. I mean, the album as a whole, as I played it, I enjoyed it as I heard it, but when this one came on, it just took you to a whole different level because, it's got that atmosphere that blends in with the rest of this album, but gone are the big, heavy synth sounds, and instead you're replaced with a very prominent guitar lead, which isn't a huge instrument on this album. But the use of empty space and the absolute aching and yearning in the vocal delivery and lyrical content, of course, is definitely palpable. It's a very tangible song. If you've ever longed for someone, knowing that you can't be with them, it could be a very relatable song to a lot of people, but the harmonies are just straight from the soul. That atmosphere, the build-up, the dreamy quality of this song. It's one of those once-in-a-lifetime gift from the gods kind of songs. And there's a great video of Brian playing this live from a few years ago, where when he finishes it up, he goes, "Isn't that a good song?" That's like, "Yeah, Brian, that's a great freaking song, man." One of the best things they ever did, hands down. I'll Bet He's Nice has some Bruce Johnston at the end. Very cool to see him back in the fold. He was always there anyway, doing stuff in the background, but this is pretty much a Wilson Brothers track. All three of them take leads on this one, which is great. And again, more that heartbreaking tale kind of quality. And I love how this one can turn from sort of a comforting, dreamy feel to instantly tension-filled drama overnight, within a couple of seconds. Love how it can completely switch from that. But Carl's middle bit is just unbelievable. His vocal delivery there is just... Someone famously said Carl could sing the phone book, and they weren't kidding. Let's Put Our Hearts Together as Brian and Marilyn, and they're sharing a sweet duet here. I really love the synth work on top of this one, sort of buried underneath a really shimmering piano. Love the gruffness in Brian's voice mixed with Marilyn's very smooth and tender delivery. Absolutely lovely little track here. Great track. I Want to Pick You Up is a song about being a parent, sung by Dennis and Brian. Just showing love for their kids, you know. It's a classic sort of group vocal in the chorus, which I think is pretty cool. And the ending is very Smile to me. It's a very, like, Mama Says type of ending, which I think is fun. You know, people sort of rip on this one, of course. What do you want? It's a song about being a parent, song about your kids. I guess someday if I ever have kids, I'd appreciate the song more, but I think it's fine the way it is now. Airplane. Again, one of the best tracks they ever did. Mike's lead vocal on this one is fantastic. The articulation in his voice really has a more soulful delivery than a lot of his stuff that he was doing vocally at this time. But the coda tag of Brian and Carl going back and forth, I can't wait to see her face. Awesome. Love hearing them have fun. And it's a great addition to the album at this point in the sequencing to have that sort of fun feel to it. But Brian's storytelling and his verses are just as awesome and interesting as Mike's. It's a really well blended song. And they played this live a couple of times too. Works well live. And the album ends with Love Is a Woman, which was the first track we ever heard from this thing when he performed it on SNL in the fall of '76. And it's a funky, tender ballad, and I like how the guys take turns singing this one as well. You know, it's catchy. The hooks are great. You know, it's an uplifting kind of song. I mean, some of the lyrics are a little bit clunky, but it works. You know, what makes the Beach Boys' Love You perfect for me is that it's imperfect. It showcases humanity. It showcases someone's mental state. It showcases someone's worldview. And nobody's perfect. So I think that's what makes this album so appealing to people, is that it's such a unique moment of Brian's life. And the fact that he did it all himself, 90% of it is just him, makes it even more fascinating. But here's the back cover. Somebody wrote their name up here, Mike somebody, June 1977. I'm not sure if that's going to come out in the camera at all. But it's that blue line right there. So Mike, I got your copy. But the texture of this album is, it's like a matte finish, and it's a very, I don't want to use the word fuzzy feeling album, but it's kind of a fuzzy feeling album. The inner sleeve, it's a Beach Boys celebrating their Sweet 16, so some great shots of the guys, including Billy, so they got everybody on here, which is pretty cool. And the back cover, that classic shot of Brian and Marilyn, with their dedication to Brian. Here you go. That lighting is, you know, it's funny. I go from having terrible lighting to light that's too bright. But it's just the classic Brother Records reprise label at that time. So, now that you've waited years to see this video and it's finally ending here, for me, this is another 10 out of 10 Beach Boys album. I love that for the first time, basically since Smile, Brian was 100% in charge of what was happening here. He did it all himself. He had the guys come in and do the vocals, and it's a very wonderful listening experience because it's something totally unexpected. And I love that. I love when bands take chances and take a risk. And what's funny too is because once again, here's Brian Wilson ahead of the curve doing stuff that other people wouldn't do for years. Several years later, synthesizers and new wave became the complete norm, and that was just the basis of 80s music, was computers and synthesizers. And it's kind of been that way ever since for a lot of bands. But it's a very important listen. Even if you're not a fan of this album, I really think you should give it a try and just, you know, turn off your phone, don't look at your computer, just put the record on, close your eyes, and get lost with it, because it's such a rewarding experience. And I've heard this album hundreds of times probably, and I never get tired of it, and I still find something different in it each time I listen to it. There's always one little bit here and there that I discover. I mean, I didn't realize Bruce was on this thing till like 2012 or something. I was like, oh, that's Bruce Johnson in the background about Betty's Nice. That has to be him. That's got to be him. So one of those things you just never know. But 10 out of 10, I highly recommend this thing. If you've never heard it before, give it a try. Beyond the fact of whether you'll like it or not, it's something that you won't forget, which is pretty cool. And that's what I think good music should do for you. My name is Giggens. This has been the Beach Boys Love You. Please continue to watch my channel now that all the videos you've wanted have been fulfilled. Seriously. And that's it. I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you so much for watching. Take care of yourselves. It's an honor to talk about the Beach Boys Love You. Bye-bye.